as you can see. And I will, when I finished it, downloads to my computer. I will upload it to YouTube as a private video. I will take the transcript from it. When I have the transcript, I will delete it off YouTube. It does have to be stored because of the American regulations, so it will be stored on the World Outreach server in Singapore, and so it'll be safe there. And then for the transcript, I'll once I've tidied up the transcript, YouTube does not do an awesome job of it, but it's quicker than writing it out fully. So what I'll do is when I've done the transcript, I send it back to you, and you have to tell me whether this is what you actually said or not, or maybe you would like to add some stuff. So yeah, just so you know, this is accurate from you.
So should I change my name, or should I take my name off? Is that better?
No. I'm going to, because I've promised anonymity. I will change the name to something else.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll let you know. So if you ever actually bother to read the thesis, you can see what you said and how I quoted you.
Well, I'm just wondering for the recording purposes, if it would help you to have me change my name, and then you can maybe restart the recording.
I mean, don't worry about it, because once it's going to be deleted off YouTube anyway. Once I've got the transcript, and then it'll go into the World Outreach folder,
Okay.
and it'll disappear. It'll disappear forever.
Okay, sounds fine to me.
All right, mate. So we are recording. Yes, we are, and let's move over here. Okay, so hello, Spencer.
Hey, Jason. Miss Edward. Sorry, Edward.
yeah, whatever. Hold on, I just got to get rid of. I interviewed Ilse last night. That was very revealing. Okay, so look, I have asked you to interview you because I have identified you as an apostolic worker. And so for the sake of my research, I am differentiating between apostolic and apostles. So apostles are those gifted by God, in my definition, to plant churches or movements of churches. They usually produce signs and wonders here and there. They promote the DNA of the kingdom, and they build structures that help get the job done. So I've identified you as someone who does those things, and so you are clearly working, in my mind, working apostolically. Whether you identify or not as an apostle is yet to be revealed. And for the sake of the research, whether you want to do that or not doesn't really matter. But anyway, so do you agree then? Do you agree with me that you are working apostolically according to my definition?
I mean, I would say so. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's all I need to know. So my topic is themes in discerning female apostles, and what I'm going to do is talk to at least 5 male apostolic workers. Hopefully they are apostles, and talk about their process leading up to where they are, and compare that with the female apostolic workers, and hopefully gain some insight on differences in the process, so we can get some keys for, are there differences between men and women apostles in terms of the discernment process? My assumption is there's probably not, but you never know until you do the research, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'd like to know then is about you. What have been key moments, epiphanies, or revelations in your personal and spiritual development that lead you to the point where you are now? So I'm only really referring to your apostolic work.
I mean, when I first became a believer, I think I just automatically just started, thinking of how to reach people. And so going back to my college days, um, which is constantly thinking of how to reach people. And all throughout my Christian growth, I think that's been my passion and drive. And so I wasn't really thinking in terms of, is that apostolic or not? It's just kind of what you did. And so, as you grow and you just are in this environment, then you start learning about, oh, apostles, and that's what they do. And um, so one of the things that resonates with me about the apostle is it says that they're actually a jack of all trades but master of none, you know. And so I feel like that really describes me, because I can do evangelism. I don't consider myself an evangelist. I can't teach. I don't consider myself a great teacher, so um pastor, I think I can care for people adequately. I don't feel like that's my gifting. So I feel like that probably describes me, because I can do multiple things adequately, but certainly none really great. And I do have a passion for releasing people. And I think that's a key apostolic thing as well,
Yeah.
is seeing the potential in people, and maybe being able to even visualize step by step what needs to happen to release that person. And so I think that's fairly intuitive for me to do that kind of stuff. And so I don't know, that's kind of what I've grown to understand an apostle does. And so I have no idea if I answered your question or not.
No, I think that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so again, next question was we're just covering your credentials in this first section. Yes. So okay, can you tell me some key signs, wonders, or miracles that God has given you? Again, we're going from the very beginning until now.
Yeah, I don't actually know that I could point to specific miracles. I can remember, you know, one time in particular praying for someone for healing, and just almost instantly the fever was gone. But I don't really feel like signs or wonders is something that I have really experienced much of. And
Okay.
so I don't know if that's because of kind of the background I come from, or what. Um, I was actually, this is a bit of a tangent, but following the earthquake, was surprised that we didn't see more signs and wonders. And so I wasn't sure why that. I still don't know why that was. And it wasn't for
Yeah.
lack of asking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Right.
know. Yeah. Yeah, well, you've just seen though. You have seen at least one healing.
It seems kind
What
of pathetic if you get right down to it. I mean,
what about exorcism?
this is another thing too. I've never been called upon to do an exorcism.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like I know how to do it. I mean, I've studied it.
Yeah.
I've talked about it, but I've never been called upon to do that.
Yeah. Well, in all these years, I've only done several here. I think I did more in Australia than I did here.
I, I
Does
don't
it
know.
make sense? It doesn't
I'm
make
not really
sense.
looking for it, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but I hope I'm ready if the situation presented it. There was
Hmm.
actually one opportunity I missed
Okay.
very early on when we came to Lombok. And I was deferring to this one guy because it was his neighborhood, and he was a professor at STEE. I was brand new, and looking back, I think I should have just led, but I didn't. So I missed that opportunity.
Okay. What about dreams, visions, prophetic words? I mean, they all generally come under that supernatural type heading.
Yeah. Um, I assume the question is for me personally.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't, I don't, I have not received dreams. I've received strong words at times. They're pretty far in between.
Hmm.
And sometimes when I get them, I don't understand them.
Hmm.
Like there was one that I very clearly felt like you have too many. That was the word of the Lord. And at the time I received it, I was like, I kind of misapplied it because I thought it related to something else.
Yeah.
I think, our journey about a year and a half ago where I heard the word accelerate.
Yep.
And so we've gone through this process of basically releasing. So I feel like there have been clear moments. I don't feel like they've been as often as I would like. And I attribute that mostly to my lack of sensitivity. I feel like the Lord's always speaking.
Yep.
It's kind of like a radio station. You got to be tuned in to the right
Yeah.
frequency.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like that's my weakness is not being sensitive enough. Um, One of the things I've just learned recently about myself is I'm not a sit still and hear the word of the Lord. I actually need to kind of be moving around.
Okay.
There's like, what did they call that? Kinesthetic. I think
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
I heard a podcast and the guy was talking about he's a kinesthetic listener. Like, oh my gosh, that exactly describes me. If I'm out walking in nature or something, even jogging,
Yeah.
that's when I
Yeah.
get to like some of the direction we think we got for UNRWA when we were trying to focus on college students was a
Hmm.
result of walking. I
Yeah.
was prayer walking the campus, and there was a couple of very key things that I felt like the Lord spoke very, very quick succession. And so, like, oh, I think that is the Lord speaking.
Yep.
And sometimes I feel like when I'm in that waking up zone where I'm not fully awake and
Hmm.
something is totally out of the blue, I go,
Yep.
huh, I should take it. Sometimes it's a song. I'll have a song
Hmm.
so I think those are words from the Lord, but I'm just not nearly as sensitive as
Yep.
I think the Lord is speaking way, way more than I'm hearing.
Yep. So let me go off topic a bit. That sort of hearing from the Lord, how does that fit with your background? Now, you have a cessationist background, right?
Oh, all of our sending churches are cessationists. Yeah.
Okay.
I should say
So
that.
so are cessationists allowed to go there, like these?
That's a really good question. And I think the answer would be yes,
Okay.
because Tim, it seems like for me in our background, cessationist pretty much deals with tongues and healing, maybe prophecy. Prophecy is one of those kind of a little bit fuzzy.
Okay.
Because my seminary was definitely beginning to talk about how do you incorporate prophecy, like into the
Oh,
chapel
really?
times and things. Yeah, I was like, it was just as I was graduating,
Okay.
and so but I don't think hearing from the Lord would necessarily be something a cessationist wouldn't do, because it's not tongues or healing or healing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next question. So have you had personal revelations from or of Jesus?
I wouldn't know.
No. Okay. Do you identify as an apostle?
I like the way you said at the very beginning, apostolic versus I guess I don't know. Um, yeah, I think I am, but I don't. No, I don't really identify myself that way. No.
Okay. But you,
Partly,
but
I think
you,
that sounds. Partly, I think they feel sort of arrogant, a little bit, like, "Oh, I'm an apostle." So anyway, I think that's part of my hesitation.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think there's a whole lot of theological and historical baggage around the term and the use of the term, isn't there? That
I think you're
makes
right.
makes
Yeah.
everyone. I mean, like I think of some of my African brothers who, have apostle on their name cards, their business cards, and I mean that for me is just total cringe.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think so. And um, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's some baggage certainly attached to
Yeah,
the word.
yeah, yeah. Um, so okay, so what I'm hearing is yes with I'm hearing a yes with hesitation. Is that correct?
I mean, I think I would. It's kind of weird. I just still feel kind of arrogant to say, "Well, I'm an apostle." But do I do apostolic activities? I think so. Do I act
Of
like
course you
it? Do I?
do.
Yeah. So I feel like I think just an uncomfortableness with the term. I just feel more comfortable with being apostolic.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think, when I was reading Dent's book, and even Caldwell, like they come from I think from a similar background to you,
They would. They would. Yeah.
and they yeah, they express similar hesitation, and yeah, I think it's all about uh, historical baggage, cultural baggage, and even, well, like the NAR
Yes.
nonsense.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
good.
yeah, I mean, I didn't, I stopped reading Wagner unintentionally, and so I've only just caught up with all of that NAR stuff, because people have said to me, uh, that I'm in AR. I said, I don't even know what that is, so I can't be it.
Yeah.
I've had to research it to find out what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so has there been a process in your thinking? Or let me go back on that. How many years have you been on the field?
31.
31 years. So has there been a process in your thinking from when you first came to now in regards to this topic about being apostolic, being an apostle? Like when you first come, would you have even thought that you were apostolic? Would you be brave enough to say that when you first came?
Honestly, Jason, it wasn't. We weren't talking about that back, at least in my circles,
Yeah.
back in the early '90s, and I probably would have put myself in the category of teacher in the early days.
Yeah.
So you look at the Ephesians 4:11. I would say, yeah, I'm a teacher. I would definitely say I didn't have the gift of evangelist. I didn't know what prophecy was. I wouldn't have said I had prophecy. And then apostle, I think I probably would have said, I don't really know what that is. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what I would have said.
Yeah.
But then as time went on and, um, it was a topic that was more and more discussed, then I began to say, oh, huh, maybe that is what I do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, my organisation is a mildly charismatic organisation, and no one talks about it either. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think our founder had the wisdom to function on task, not title.
okay. Yeah, that's
You
good.
know, like it's not about what anyone calls you. Are you actually doing the job? Again, this
Right.
is, I think, one of the, in charismatic circles, which where I'm from, this is one of the key areas that people want to give themselves a title and not actually do the job.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
All right, jumping to the next question. Okay, again, this is covering stuff you've probably already said. What gifts or qualities associated with being an apostle do you see in yourself or have others observed in you?
I mean, I think it's pretty much what I said earlier, just being a jack of all trades. And so I can do evangelism, I can do teaching, I can do shepherding. Still not sure about prophecy, but, can strong vision and I think being able to see steps toward that vision. And I have some certain, I think, administrative abilities. And so I think that helps to have a systematic way to equip people. So I don't know. Maybe that's how I'd answer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And your impact on us. I mean, if you weren't here for us in our second year here, like I wonder if we'd actually still be here. Like we had a vision. We'd already done a CPM course, But it's a long way from doing a course to seeing it put in practice. So that trip we did with you to Sumbawa really helped us, and even after that, just helped us a lot, and we're grateful. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank
And
you for your friendship.
And just seeing your influence over the island, the province, even. Like you've really, you talked earlier about pushing people forward. And that's not the term you use, but empowering people. Like you and your wife have really done that a lot, which is to me proof of the apostleship. Like it's not just all about you. Okay, maybe this next question maybe not be that relevant. What role did others play in discerning your apostleship?
I mean, I don't really think I had a role. Anyone had a role. I mean, no one pulled me aside and said, "I think you're apostolic."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't feel like there was any intentional development of us as apostles. I mean, obviously we have people pouring into us. We've got lots of people over the years pouring into us, but in terms of the narrowly like you're talking about as apostleship, no one has ever said, I want to develop you as an apostle.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. You've probably answered this question as well. What was the time span and process between personal identification as an apostle and apostolic fruit?
I actually do remember being back in the US and because I like to journal, so I was journaling and I was like, well, I think I am actually an apostle. And so was journaling, and then I shared that with a guy that mentors me, and he said, oh yeah, I definitely affirm that in you. And it's like, oh, so I probably would have, it was before we joined Beyond, so it would have been, I don't know, anyway, more than 14, let's say 14 years ago or so, 16. And so yeah, but in turn, and so the question was about from identification to the present. It's hard.
It's about the time span. The time span between identification and fruit.
Oh, and fruit, yeah.
So after that little epiphany in your diary, in your journal, and the affirmation by that person of significance, did that impact fruitfulness?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't do anything differently. It was more a sense of, well, this is who you are, and just, delight in that and do what you've been doing. And for me, it was a confidence. It was a confidence to say, yeah, lead.
Okay. Okay. So I could quote you then and say, so that after that incident, the journaling, the affirmation, you did have more confidence in your call.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I had a similar experience.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you suffered because of your calling?
I mean, not in the terms of persecution. I mean, our story of leaving our previous organization. I wouldn't call that suffering, but I think there was certainly a clash of leaders.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. I mean, I think your question is related to persecution, and so we've been threatened, but not. I wouldn't call that persecution.
Okay. So, or in the past, you've talked a little about that leaving the former organisation, and even of late, I'm aware that you've had some internal team issues. Surely those things do count as suffering.
Yeah, I know. But you also look at, the Apostle Paul, and we have someone that we both know that went to jail, in East Java, and like
Yeah.
that's persecution in my mind.
Yeah. Well, but I'm not specifically asking about persecution. Like
Yeah.
big. If you hadn't have been here, you wouldn't have gone through
No, no, no,
this pain. That's really what I'm.
really not. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So in terms of no, I'll restate that. I'll just read the question. Question 9. Which biblical leaders do you identify with and in what ways?
Can I go back to something just previously? So
Sure.
you referenced when our colleague Iksan left. I kind of feel like there was some apostolic authority that I didn't exercise there.
Okay.
And I think we followed a good biblical pattern of bringing discipline and stuff, but I think that was kind of missing in my kind of thought process of, you're an apostle, you're trying to equip an apostle. There is authority that goes with that. And so I don't think that was as part of my thought process as much as it should have been. And anyway, I think I'm just growing partly in understanding what apostleship is. And I guess what I'm saying is there is a time that you exercise authority. And I think that's maybe I've held back a little bit on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
But to your question, biblically, I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have one. I mean, this actually isn't even my question. It was a question suggested to me.
I would say maybe Barnabas would be
Okay.
the one that I would want to probably most aspire to would be
Yeah.
Barnabas.
Okay.
Would yeah.
Yeah. And so is that it? But say in most aspiring to be like him, like you want to be the person that comes alongside others and releases them out. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but Paul or he actually he did release people, but he's got an apostle, and so there's that also that I'm in the front, I'm leading, I'm calling people forth. And so for me, it just seems like he had both of those things. Like Paul, you kind of envision a little rough around the edges, like, he can say some pretty harsh things, and so Barnabas, on the other hand, he led, but he was also
Hold
gentle.
on, mate. I've got someone knocking at my door. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll be like. It will fit. Bring on boarding copy here.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, mate.
No worries.
Keep going.
Well, I don't know if you heard what I said. There's a harshness to Paul, but I don't, you don't see that in Barnabas, at least what's recorded anyway. So that's why I would rather aspire to someone like Barnabas, who had that I'm leading, come follow, but then also the come alongside and the softness side.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Why? Because I see that as a foreigner, the ability to stuff up just on cross-cultural issues is fairly high, and so we came in and decided that we would be kinder and gentler than we normally would, and that's something we've tried to stick with. Just because half the time we feel that we don't actually really know what's going on.
Well, and us Americans don't know our Americanness. It's just so part of us. We're not even tuned to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, okay, good answer. So how has your background, religion, church, organization, culture influenced your identification as an apostle?
I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, so you're an American. Is Texas count as the Midwest? I don't know.
No, it's the
Um,
same.
okay, so an American from Texas of cessationist background. What sort of impact has that had on your development?
Um, I mean, Texans are quite independent and stubborn. I don't know if I would say that's an influence necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I prefer to say the Bible is what, and Holy Spirit influenced me more than being from a culture of independent-minded people.
Yep.
I don't know, Jason. Not sure.
Well, like I don't know if you know my story, but I got saved at university and by reading a book that Anne gave me. And then 6 months in, we had someone come in and uh, they talked to us at our university group about the fate of the lost and the need for missionaries. And I was greatly emotionally stirred, and I had to go home, had to run an errand to my cousin's house, and she wasn't there. And I stood in the driveway, and I said to God, "What can I do? What can I do?" And I came to the conclusion that the best thing I could possibly do with my life was to plant churches in Indonesia. Like I already had this connection with Indonesia. I was studying Indonesian at university, and I
Yeah.
made this connection, and the word apostle slipped into my heart right then. And I made the mistake of sharing that with my mentor, who mocked me. Uh,
Oh,
now, how would it have been if I had have met you now at 18 years old and I said, here I am, 18. God help you if you got me at 18. But imagine if someone had said, awesome, let's get you on track, and no one ever did. Like
mm,
we probably like you, we bumbled our way to the field.
yeah,
We
yeah.
bumbled, yeah, so I guess that's really what I'm asking about your background. Then is, um, did you bumble? Did you have a clear pathway? Because you were planning to do apostolic stuff from the very beginning anyway, weren't you?
Honestly, I went to seminary not knowing I wanted to serve the Lord. Went to seminary and then took the perspectives class, and that's when God put unreached people groups on our heart. So in some ways, it was sort of step by step because serve the Lord, go to seminary, unreached people groups, and then applying to different mission organizations. Um, I mean, it happened that there was the keynote speaker for Missions Week was an Indonesian man, and so I had breakfast with him, and that's really what pointed us toward Indonesia.
Yep. Okay. Um, do you have any male or female apostle role models uh, from the Bible among people you know or people you've read about?
And I think our organization has really strong apostolic types. Kent Parks, Dan Parks, a couple other guys. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say that was the case in our previous org. Um, Well, at least one guy was, but I mean, so I think presently, yes, I think I have some really good role models.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think role models are important?
Well, yeah, clearly. I mean, yeah.
What about female apostles? Have you bumped into any in your org? I know you share a house with one, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if you go back history-wise, there's tons of females, like Gladys Allworth and Amy Slesher and Amy Carmichael, Mary Slessor, Amy Carmichael. But yeah, I would say in our organization there's a couple. Um, yeah, and I would actually say with Beyond that's really affirmed the male female apostleship. There's really not a difference. Both are affirmed equally, I would say.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So do they actually talk about it in your org like that, as openly as that?
Oh yeah, I would say we do. Um, we're doing a little bit of a restructuring where we're trying to look at giftings, the whole APEST thing. And so I don't know that we always say apostle per se, but as we've looked at different leadership roles, it doesn't really matter if you're male or female.
Yeah,
And so, like, for instance, for a time, I was the leader for Indonesia. I served for 2 years, and then they chose Rhonda.
yeah,
So it wasn't because male or female, it's just like who's the right person at this time. And so um, I think for us, it doesn't matter if you're male or female for the
yeah.
different leadership roles.
Okay, that's great. Well, what differences and similarities do you see, if any, between female and male apostles, apart from the
Um,
obvious?
well, I think there's the personality side. I mean, men have kind of there's things that are more masculine and there's more things that are feminine. And so um, I think a female apostle is going to have those apostolic traits, but bringing in a female flair to them. Um, I just look at Rhonda and myself, and she's way more sensitive to people. She's way more intuitive. Um, and so I would just probably say that's a lot to deal with just being male and female. I mean,
Okay.
I'm much more I'm much more task. And so I think we're both apostolic, but there's a dimension of being male or being female.
Okay. Um, so what process processes do you suggest for discerning female apostles? Here's a scenario. In front of you, you've got five women: the 16-year-old, the 18-year-old, the 25-year-old, the 30-year-old. What processes would you use?
I mean, I think it's the issue of you got to see who's doing it, who's initiating.
Okay.
That's your apostle. And so I think at that point you want to help them develop. Now, your scenario, you have really young people, so there's a huge maturity issue that they just got to grow up.
Yeah.
Um, but I think apostle is someone who's taking initiative, and so that's what you want to look for is who's taking initiative. And um, it's kind of like when Ophin came to us and she said, I've gotten away from my calling. My calling was to Bema, and I've decided I'm going to go to Bema once a month. That's an apostle talking,
Yeah.
you know? So we go, okay, there we go. she's talking apostolic. What can we do to help you? I think that's the kind of process you want to identify, and then just say, I want to make sure I'm not in your way, I'm not holding you back, but how can I help you?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, the next question was, how would you identify with a woman as an apostle? But I think you've already covered that. What specific training would you recommend for developing women apostles?
Okay, I'll just be honest, I haven't thought about that. So I'll just kind of answer off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I would think that you would probably follow just a basic discipleship. I mean, if you're going to be an effective apostle, you've got to dig deeply into the word. You got to hear the Lord's voice. You got to, you know, reflect the character of Christ. And so I feel like there's a common denominator across the board, whether you're an evangelist or a prophet or whatever you are, there's just
Yep.
a foundation of maturity
Yep.
that so in terms of equipping apostles, you can't bypass that, right?
Yep.
But when it comes to maybe the more specific, like for instance, with a teacher, if someone has a gift of teaching, then you do want to give them the skills for exegesis and homiletics and those kinds of things. So for apostles, I think there would be some skill sets because they're coming at it with raw material, but then you want to help them develop the that ability.
Yeah.
And so I would say for an apostle, seems like they're really good at starting things, but maybe not so good at releasing. So I think if you come alongside an apostle, you want to help them with envisioning and vision casting, and then setting up some structure and systems, and then a big key is releasing. Because a lot of times an apostle is really good at stuff, and so then it's just hard to release that because it's sometimes it's easier to do things rather than to help someone else learn how to do it. It's just quicker and easier. But I think that's part of developing that apostle, is to be able to develop a person and then release the person and then step back. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Those
you've
are my
answered.
thoughts.
You've answered, and yeah, yeah, I like that, releasing people, and for me, I would probably add to that, cast the vision for an exit strategy. Like we want to, yeah, which is part of the releasing.
That's right. That's right.
Because we because of this glorious picture that we have of apostles, that we have this Superman view of what apostles are. We don't actually stop to think that these are sinful people like you and me who get stuck. And
right.
And I imagine, I can't imagine that the Lord has only just started resending apostles in the last 200 years of the missionary movement. Right. So imagine, so over what is it, 2,000 years of waiting for Jesus to return, he's given plenty, but they haven't gone anywhere. So did they get stuck in the priesthood? Did they get stuck in a little country church in Norway? Like, where'd they go? Did they just go insane with the burden? Yeah. It's like, yeah. Anyway, I want to see people get released, mate, just like you, get the job done.
Yeah. Oh, someone's knocking at our gate. Sorry, I don't know why everyone's not answering. Can I just come back to you? Sorry.
Yeah, mate, come back. All right. Just for the recording, Spencer's gone downstairs. Okay, here he is. He's back.
Sorry. Someone was banging rather persistently on the gate, and so I go from where I sit. I can only see the feet. So I anyway. So they're gone. So
Okay.
I guess it wasn't that important after all.
Indeed. All right, mate. So our theme is our topic is themes in discerning female apostles. Have you got any more pearls that you would like to deliver before we finish up?
I mean, your book is really good about just having kind of a school of prophets and that idea of letting people develop, and I think that's the key right there is recognizing people that have the potential and helping them develop, and not wanting to clone them, because if they're gifted, they have a different personality. So it's really, I think, for us, we want to recognize the potential in people and encourage them to be unique and different according to how God's wired them. And so I think your book does a good job about talking about, creating an environment to fail and get back up again. And I think that's the process of, recognizing and then developing and releasing. And, one thing I like about DMM is we're always in a relationship with someone above us, right? I think that's real wisdom for an apostle is, you're being mentored and you're mentoring. And so there's always someone that's kind of above you that you're accountable to. I think this is probably where the bad baggage comes from being apostles, is when they're not accountable and they're going out and they're maybe they had some good, a good start, but then without the accountability, they just kind of went off a little bit. And I think that's one of the reasons I like DMM so well, is we're always in accountability relationships with somebody.
Yeah.
And I think for an apostle, that's super. I think it's super. Well, let's see. Anyway, I will say it's super important for an apostle. I don't know if it's more important for an apostle, but at least it's super important that apostle is in a mentoring relationship. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, let me stop the recording now. So thanks for coming on. Oh no, I'll just cut it off at the end. Look, so we are, I don't know if you know, we are developing this prophetic company. And so I found myself a prophet that I like and trust in Bali. He's a German guy. And I don't know about you, mate, but if you've got a German prophesying, it's got to be God, right? Well, I'm being facetious, but anyway, so when I ran that consultation in Bali, I knew that the full spectrum of Christendom was going to be represented in that meeting, but I brought him anyway. And I said, this, I introduced him in culturally appropriate terms. This is my friend Jan. He enjoys listening to God and what God has to say, and he's now going to speak to you about the things he's been hearing about you as a group of movement specialists. Anyway, so he got up and he spoke for 20 minutes. Anyway, one of the Indonesian guys said to me afterwards, he said, "How the heck did you get away with that?" But during the prophecy, this Indonesian guy, he leaned over to his friend who is of Satanist persuasion, and he says, "Sounds like God's speaking to you, mate." And the guy said, "Yeah, you're right." So I thought, I like, and there was great blessing there. There was great blessing there because he was on the money in what he was saying to people as a group. and to a few individuals. And so I brought him in again for our national leaders meeting. So I don't know. World Outreach has a diversity of theological opinion. So our third in charge doesn't really go with prophecy very much. But anyway, I just brought Jan in, and he prophesied over us as a group, and also over a few individuals. Like called out the name of one of our guys' daughters, and prophesied. He said, "This is a prophecy for your daughter. Take it home." Called out her name. So yeah. So what I ask you is, like if Ephesians 2:20, the church is built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets. How do we? I want to escape from the charismatic performance pulpit performance prophet to a field prophet. How do I do that? How do I move from this? You know what I mean by putting the performance prophet. Like they're up in the pulpit. They're prophesying over people, nice hair, nice teeth, whatever. But like I want these prophets who will join field teams, or like Old Testament times, they will go in teams and visit all those teams and input prophetically into those teams. But between this desire and achieving the goal, I don't know what the points are. So anyway, sometime maybe if we four can have coffee, I'd really like to discuss that with you.
Okay, you're talking to someone who really doesn't have a background in this.
Yeah. But you're a good thinker.
Who wants to grow. The thing I like about Beyond is we talk a lot about listening to the Lord. And I think there is a prophetic element to that, where, we hear things. I think you make this distinction in your book about maybe being prophetic versus being a prophet. And so, didn't you say this, where people may have prophetic things that they hear and say without necessarily having the label? Did I make that up, or was that in your book?
It sounds about right. I mean, that's certainly the position I hold, that people can prophesy without being a prophet. Yeah.
So, so I think I like the way Beyond does it. Is we give people a chance to speak about what they feel like the Lord has said to them. And you gave a good example of how that's not done well. Like calling someone out, and so I think it's, in order to make that bridge, I think it's key how it's done. I think that's probably the biggest issue is, how is it done? Yeah. So I don't really, yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, I see the cultural. You're saying listening to God. And to my mind, we are actually saying exactly the same thing. It's just
I think we are too.
The culture, the cultural packaging is different,
and it's a lot more palatable. Now, one of the things, like, have you seen anything by Neil Cole? Okay, anyway, he's the guy that wrote something fire, Refiner's Fire. Anyway, he's talking about APES, right? So I listened to a podcast, and he's saying, because he's an apostle and his best friend is a prophet. And so he talks about, they go into an area, and he couldn't do what he's doing without the prophet, because the prophet brings some, biblical stuff to it. And I'm like, I understand that kind of theoretically, but I haven't actually seen that much worked out, which I would love to see that. That's actually an area that we're trying to grow in Beyond, is incorporating more of a partnership with apostles and prophets.
Okay. So it sounds like we're on parallel paths then, doesn't
it? It does sound like it.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that's a topic for coffee or lunch.
Oh, I'll look forward to that.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, look, it's time, and I thank you for your time today. And
I'm
I
delighted.
will. So again, we've mentioned names, we've mentioned places, and all of those will be changed to rent. You'll
Sure.
be given for the actual write up. You'll be given a false name, and all the place names and people names will be changed as well.
Sure.
Okay. All right, mate.
All right. Well, Lord bless you in your research. It
Thank
sounds
you.
exciting.
Yeah. I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. So that's really good.
Good. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. I know Rhonda's talking to you. I think it's Thursday morning.
Yeah.
So she's looking forward to that.
All right, mate. God bless. See you later.
God bless. Good talking to you.
Likewise.
Take care.